the X-Wing started to open. I was like, oh, I know what that means.
I forgot how
Hello, it is Zach with a podcast named Tim, here with a movie review for Mortal Kombat 2021. Thank you for checking out this channel. Please do give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It does a lot to help us out, and it is truly appreciated. There are going to be some spoilers here, but I'm going to try and keep those towards the back end of the review. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So Mortal Kombat 2021 released this weekend. I watched it Friday when it came out, but I wanted an evening to sleep on it to make sure I could properly assess my thoughts and verbalize them, I guess. Has an R rating, 1 hour and 50-minute runtime. Currently a 6.5 on IMDb, a 56 on the tomato meter, and an 88 from the audience score. And directed by Simon McQuaid, sure. And stars a lot of people. That's not important. Here's what's important: is it good or is it bad? You can go to the IMDb page for the other information. It's not a good movie, and I said I wanted to sleep on it for an evening. While I was watching it, I slowly became more and more annoyed and just at the disappointing. There's nothing more irritating than being disappointed by a movie, and I have a variety of reasons why. This is probably going to be a little bit of a longer review if I'm thinking about how this might be laid out, because I think it speaks to a lot of issues with movies as a whole currently. But I'll give some positives first. The gentleman who played Kano was fantastic. He was kind of the smart ass of the film, the comic relief in some respects. Thought he was great. Every scene he was in was fantastic, and your eyes were glued to him. And he did fantastic. Thought the effects were pretty good. Nothing really bad there. I thought the opening 10-15 minutes where they were doing a flashback scene that was released prior to the movie releasing was really well done and gave me a lot of hope for what the movie was going to be. But unfortunately, it is a movie that suffers from reboot syndrome, which I'm going to get to in a moment about what my issues with it as a reboot. Because there's nothing wrong with rebooting movies, just to do it correctly is the issue. So it has some reboot issues. I should say I'm not a huge Mortal Kombat video game fan. I've played a handful. I do love Mortal Kombat 1995 and enjoy Annihilation for what it is. I recently also watched the Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge film, which was released last year and has some connections and tie-ins to this film, and I have a review on that on the channel, so do check that out as well. But I think it's very unevenly paced. The opening scene or a couple scenes are interesting. The middle of the film drags significantly, and then it's a very rushed and hurried ending. A lot of the characters I thought were pretty bland, and there wasn't a lot of interesting things going on for them. It fell very flat for most of them. And I think this did a poor job of introducing this universe to first-time movie audiences. And I watched it with my wife, although she fell asleep during it, if that says anything. But she was confused even very early on. And for a Mortal Kombat movie, had very poor music, which is sad to say, and we'll get into that in a moment as well. But I think it is at best an average, and very average, action film. But I think if you were to rate it as a Mortal Kombat film, to me, I think it sorely misses the mark. And I don't think it's something I would ever recommend. I don't ever intend on watching it again. I am hopeful that with the potential for a sequel, actually, though, because I think there are some hints that things can be corrected. But that's kind of my spoiler-free, I guess, thoughts. Just not a lot there. But to really explain this, I've really got to get into some spoilers. So I would say avoid it. I'd say 4 out of 10 in my opinion, and it might go lower as I think about it more. But the first thing that I think this movie misses on is it has the No Man's, if you're a video game fan, you know what I'm talking about. It did the No Man's Sky thing, which it overpromised and underdelivered, which in any form of media, movies, video games, etc., you don't want to do. And it didn't just overpromise, it incorrectly promised. It promised us a different movie than what I think we actually got. A lot of the posters, the trailers focused on the battle between Scorpion and Sub-Zero. And it certainly bookended the film, but it is not the core element of what the film is about. And I actually think that that's obviously one of the big sins that, for me, if you're going to promise something, you got to deliver. I don't care what the movie is. Just deliver on it. Godzilla vs. Kong. I got Godzilla vs. Kong, and I got it a lot and throughout the movie. So that's a win for me. It's a very easy threshold to meet. Just promise something and deliver on it. I think the other issue is that it does suffer from, like I said, reboot syndrome, or there's probably a better way to say it, but rebooting a movie is a challenging thing because you have all of the old fans of either the lore or the movies or the games or what have you that are obviously going to have very particular thoughts on what should be done, and then you're going to have new audiences that I don't know. So I was talking to my wife about this. There's a weird thing where I feel like nowadays movies have created this divide where if you've seen the original, you automatically typically don't like the new one, and if you haven't, you'd like the new one even without any basis of seeing the original. So I don't know what that weird thing going on there is, but if you look at two franchises that were rebooted or created, I guess, whether it be the MCU or the Star Wars universe, and don't get me wrong, Star Wars has its issues, but when there's, and one is to do the singular story, and then you build up to like your Avengers movie. You make an Iron Man, you make a Thor, what have you. You make a couple of individual movies and build to the Avengers, which this movie could have easily done with the idea of the Hanzo, and I think it's Bi-Han, focusing on that. I think this movie could have been really well done as a Scorpion origin story, where we focus on his transformation and the battle between these two clans, and just that explanation, and made it more of a kung fu movie in some respects, or a revenge film, and then put in some of those more supernatural elements like they did in the animated film, where Scorpion goes to hell, and you see him make the deal with the devil basically to get his powers. It's Quan Chi there, but you could do it in a lot of different ways. So that's one way to create or reboot a franchise, and that would have worked with this film. And they kind of tried to do that. But then there's also another way, which is The Force Awakens. You kind of just give everyone enough of the original ideas of the franchise so that you can show them what you're doing, and then in later films you can manipulate and try and do new and different things. And so you give them the vanilla ice cream, the macaroni and cheese, the foods that people like. But this film gave us, I think, a kind of a studio washed version of those two ideas, and I don't think it really worked. And here's some of the things. I think there are a couple of bare minimums that have to be in a Mortal Kombat film that just speak to people when they think about it. And that's, you need to have a Mortal Kombat tournament, which this movie did not have. And you need to have the Mortal Kombat music and the energy, because those two things are the two things that the average audience person or person going into it is going to know about. They're going to know probably gore, which I know a lot of people were excited about that, and there is some good gore in this film, and some good action sequences, but everything surrounding it is beyond subpar. But if you're going to introduce this universe and try and reboot and talk about how you're going to do 4 movies, you can get to the invading, the breaking of the rules. It's a movie that breaks its own genres or its own universe's rules in movie number 1, and I think that's a poor decision, because you have to establish rules in a movie franchise, in a universe, in order for those rules to then be broken, to create stakes, so that we as an audience know that, oh, things have been taken up a notch and things are going bad. So I think if the movie would have focused on either just the Scorpion revenge story and made a movie about that, or a generic tournament, I mean, honestly, or you can fuse them together. If you watch the Scorpion's Revenge, they did a good job of fusing those two storylines together very well. But again, part of it, the reason it worked is because it has that baseline of the tournament idea. And I just think if you're going to do some kind of franchise, and it's different for each franchise, but if you're going to do this kind of franchise, you need a tournament and you need the music. And there's other little things as well, but I thought those were two of the biggest things that were lacking. And I don't like it when they're throwing everything at us at once, and just hoping something sticks and hope it works. But you got to build. You got to be more confident in your abilities to deliver on those other future movies. Just give us one self-contained good story, and you can then build on all these other things. That's one of my, I guess, if it boils down to what my biggest issue is with the movie, it's that it did not present well in that regard. And then it's just kind of boring and unevenly paced, as I said earlier. But I think that's my biggest issue with it, is that we were promised one movie, did not get it, and then also it violates the tenets of what I think is the very bare minimum. You can do anything you want in Mortal Kombat, but I think for the first movie, when you're rebooting this franchise, you kind of have to give people that humble pie, the basics of what they're expecting, because then you can experiment within the film and they'll have that baseline of information. If you think about the first Mortal Kombat when that came out, 1995, it gets right into it immediately. It creates stakes. It says there's a tournament, this is going on, and then you build in the tournament, and it just, tournaments are also just great in any kind of fighting film, because it creates that baseline of tension that is created. And I don't know, there's a lot of other things probably that we can talk about and be happy to talk about in the comments below, but I thought this movie was beyond a disappointment, and I'd see a second one. That's the thing, because it's a franchise I think that can easily be corrected. They did tease Johnny Cage for the second one. I am excited to see that, but I don't think that was not the issue. The issue was they did not explain. They didn't do a good job of giving a first-time audience member a lore that you needed to understand the universe and buy in. If you're making a Star Wars movie, you need the Force, you need, lightsabers. I watched a commentary, and I'll end on this. I watched the commentary for Wrath of Khan, and the director said that he opened up the movie Wrath of Khan on Spock's ear. He said, "I never really seen a lot of, Star Trek. I didn't really care for it that much, but I opened the movie up on Spock's ear because I knew that's what people associate. I knew that's what people associated Star Trek with, Spock and the way his ear looked." And so, just something as simple as that. I think it missed the mark on a lot of things. But again, I'd be happy to hear your thoughts. Maybe I should say go see it just so you can compare it to the 1995 movie. Maybe I'm wrong in just being an old bitter man, but I think that movie has a lot of just character. The movie has character, not just the characters in the movie that have better characters, but I think the movie has character. And so I'd be happy to talk about it. See you next time here on a podcast named Tim.